Parents' rights when it comes to their children's education has been the subject of much controversy of late. There's a new film out this week from Pureflix Entertainment that deals with the hot-button issue. It's called God's Not Dead, We the People, which premieres Friday, October 22nd. It's an inspirational drama that asks the question, if your individual liberties are threatened, particularly when it comes to educating your children, what would you do? Here's a preview with two of the stars of the film, David A.R. White and Antonio Sabato Jr. Thank you both for being here, gents. David, you're reprising your role of Reverend Dave Hill in the newest installment of the God's Not Dead series. The plots of these movies have been about bringing God into the public sphere, but this time your character's dealing with a homeschooling co-op that have been told by the local government that if they don't follow the public school curriculum, dropping religious education, or instruction rather, they'll be fined every week until they do. Why did you want to make homeschooling the battleground and backdrop of this movie?
Yeah, thanks. Thanks so much for having us, Raymond.
Not at all.
You know, it's an interesting thing always to see where in the world these God's Not Dead movies are going to go, and never did I ever imagine that we would be making another, another installment of it. But last year, homeschoolers went from 2.5 million in the United States to 5 million, and so if you have kids, I'm sure you realize, you all of a sudden learned what homeschooling was because we all had to do that with our children, and it just seemed as a good backdrop to launch from. Basically, where does the government, where do they cross over the line? And then how much do they also reach into our homes? And what's too much? And that's kind of where this movie came out of. Mm-hmm.
Antonio, you play one of the parents who has chosen to homeschool. What drew you to the character? I mean, it seems like you all had a crystal ball given what's happening now.
Well, I'm very much, I care about my children. I've homeschooled my children. And when the story came to me from David, I felt so much in touch with his character because it's what I went through. This film is about freedom. It's a freedom of choice. And, that freedom has been taken away every single day in this country, all over the world right now. It's a shame. So that's why I was really, compelled to do this film from the beginning. And I just had such a pleasure working on it, and we had a great time shooting in Oklahoma, and we released it in the theaters just recent, and the feedback was just phenomenal, and I'm just so happy and pleased to be part of it.
David, you grew up in a Mennonite community. Your father was a pastor, and I know you're one of the co-founders of Pureflix. How did your upbringing lead to these inspirational religious-based films? Did you find that in your background, in your upbringing?
The joke is always, if you don't know anything about the Mennonites, they make the Mormons look like a pack of Hell's Angels. But I grew up really conservative, and I saw one movie in the theater the first 18 years of my life. And so, going into the entertainment industry wasn't necessarily a thing that I would do, except that I had a heart for the faith-based community. I had a heart for that really there really wasn't much of a genre for it, and I felt, we did our first movie in '99 when feature films for this community really hardly had existed at all.
Right.
And so, but it was so important because America is made of people who are hungry for faith, and obviously it's a forgotten part of our culture in a lot of different ways. More and more we see that in what the government's trying to push on us, and so. This just is, it makes sense of why I feel such a passion for growing up in it, but also, it's a timely message. All of these films have been timely in a way that it brings conversations up, conversations of God from the high school to the colleges to the community, and now let's bring it to Washington.
I want to give the audience a little glimpse of the film. In this clip, Reverend Dave and the McKinnons react to finding out they'll be fined by the government if they don't remove God from the homeschooling curriculum. Watch.
It all seems so extreme.
Dave, I want you to know that we will not be cooperating at all, okay?
Not giving in is more like it.
Yeah.
I've spoken to the board. We could certainly adjust the curriculum to be more accommodating.
Don't you mean compromise the curriculum? We already told them we're not conforming.
Religion has been removed from our schools. They're teaching kids that they don't need God. that faith is irrelevant to their personal choices, Dave.
I hear you. I mean, these are some of the reasons we started the co-op in the first place.
This film takes the argument, the debate over homeschooling and religious instruction all the way to the Capitol. Do you believe homeschooling faces a federal threat, a religious one? Antonio, I'll start with you.
I think we do. I think we face that, all of us, as Americans, as human beings right now. We're fighting a real good fight right now, and I think God wants us to step out of our comfort zone. And that's why I started, Trailblazers Pictures. That's where we're working together with Dave and his company. And, we want to work together and bring God more out there than less of it. And doing these films and fighting for our freedom, it's all in it together, because God has been taken away from everywhere. And I certainly want to fight for God, and I want to keep it alive. And doing these films, like I said, and fighting for films that have family values and the core of this country and dignity and just being proud to be a patriot. And we have to make more of those films. And I'm just proud that I have a great team that we're going to be doing a lot of those this year and next year.
Dave, this battle over homeschooling, as you said, it's exploded during this pandemic. And there are some localities that are trying to control the curriculum. You see this then as the next battle for families and people of faith.
Yeah, I mean, I want to be clear, too, that this movie isn't just all about homeschooling. Like, it's really about freedom. And where does the government, where is that line to how much the government can reach into our lives, our personal lives, and and also with our children. And so, I feel like this movie is relevant. Homeschooling is a backdrop for it. There's no doubt about it that, we're seeing that with the Common Core message and all this stuff put into schools in different ways, in the public schools, and which is why people homeschool in the first place, is to get away from that where parents can choose how to educate their children. But it's such a broad topic, but ultimately it comes back to freedom, and there's a great quote in this movie at the beginning from Ronald Reagan that talks about, when freedom is lost from a generation, they very rarely, they actually never see it again. And I think America is at that, that place where how much are we willing to lose our freedoms? And do we remember the people who bled and shed their blood for these freedoms? And that's really what the core of this movie is about.
Antonio, I read in a recent interview, you grew up in Rome, which I was not aware of. You grew up in Rome, and that's really where the seeds of your faith took root. Tell us about that and how that's impacted your career and certainly the films you're working on now and this film.
Well, I was always close, and my relationship with Jesus was always there from the beginning. My family, my father and my mother, my dad was from Sicily, and he had a great career as an actor during the 70s in Rome, Italy, and my mom escaped communism from the Czech Republic and found a career and a new life in Italy, and then she met my dad. So I knew about the two worlds of socialism and all that other stuff, but I also knew about God, and I knew that I had to find God on my own. It was never my family to force that on me, because, I'm Jewish by blood. My mother's Jewish, so I respect everything from a young age, from Hebrew and Christianity and everything. And then I just knew I had a close friend in Jesus, and he was always there for me. And I urge everyone to find that relationship with Jesus, because it's really the most important one. And growing up, I got closer and closer, and now I feel closer than ever to Jesus Christ, and I'm compelled to keep living my life for him.
Do you think people are too passive, Antonio? That they're too accepting of these government encroachments on not only their freedom, but their religious practice, particularly as we've seen over the last year and a half?
I look at the Bible and I look at the Word of God, and it's all in there. And he makes it so easy for us to understand that we're fighting the battle right now. But I was, when I face these issues, whether it's government or just in the community or just life itself, I always look at what Jesus had to go through. Asking his father and his father asking him and talking about the fact that you're going to die for everyone else. And when I look at that and I look at my son and my family, I go, you know what? Whatever problems I have, and I look at what Jesus had to go through, I'm okay. I'm going to be all right. But we can't stop being Christians, and we just have to really respect and be honored of our Father and our Savior. And that's all I can do as a human being, and I'm going to keep pushing for that.
David, the God's Not Dead series, it's done incredibly well. The first film became a worldwide phenomenon, one of the most profitable films when it was released. This new film, of course, has already garnered a huge audience. Why do you think people are drawn to this series? And what's next?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think people are drawn to it. It ultimately it opens up conversations of God in different ways, and it allows you to start talking about these things that maybe you wouldn't bring up necessarily. So it's a good launch off, for conversations. Again, like the first one took place in a college campus. Conversations about God in the college campus, and then it was the high school and the next one, and then it went into the community, and we really felt like it wasn't that we ever set out to do more God's Not Dead movies. It's just that the way that our society and the way that what we're dealing with and right in the middle of it, it feels like God's Not Dead is there for a purpose. It opens up these conversations, and there's a lot of things that need to be talked about in our country right now, and for that I'm so thankful to be part of the God's Not Dead franchise, and whether or not we'll make another installment, we'll see. I mean, we certainly couldn't have even imagined that the outpour. This was at a 3-day Fathom event, and we were sold out audiences almost every night. People were standing ovations, and now it's coming to Pureflix. It is on pureflix.com, and so people can check that out there, and we'll see. It's always it's an interesting thing to see what is our next step.
Yeah. Well, it's amazing. The response is amazing, and it shows you the hunger of the audience and the questions that they're pondering at home that you're tapping into. God's Not Dead, We the People, begins streaming on Pureflix October 22nd. For more information on the film or to sign up to watch, visit godsnotdead.com. David, Antonio, thank you both for being here.
Pleasure.
Thank you so much.